and welcome back to Autofocus Problems, the series, the new YouTube show where I try to talk to camera, but any back and forth head movement I make makes my face go blurry. Despite abysmal viewing numbers, I'm going to keep talking about weird and somewhat obscure movies, because unlike some, I'm not a fucking hack YouTube film critic who doesn't know what he's talking about and who is willing to completely abandon the core premise of his show in pursuit of the almighty click. As such, today's movie is Inland Empire, David Lynch's 3-hour art installation slash shitpost that somehow found its way into movie theaters. For the approximately 0 people watching this who aren't at least somewhat familiar with David Lynch's films, he's an American film director known for his dense but still somewhat accessible surrealism, his use of dream logic in the plot of his films, a perversion of images associated with traditional Americana, and the general satire of Hollywood culture. His most recent theatrical feature film is 2006's Inland Empire, a 3-hour shot-on-DV nightmare starring Laura Dern. To try and sum up the story is a thankless task, but the core premise is that Laura Dern is an actress named Nikki Grace, who has won the lead role in a new film called On High and Blue Tomorrows. As the film goes on, the line between fiction and truth, dream and reality is blurred, as Nikki's world increasingly resembles a frantic and inexplicable nightmare.
Damn! This sounds like dialogue from our script.
Cut it. What's going on? What the bloody hell's going on?
One thing particularly interesting about Inland Empire is the fact it was shot on digital video, which was still pretty primitive at the time. This was mostly for practical reasons, as many of the component parts of the film, such as the rabbit segments, were originally shot as web videos for davidlynch.com. It doesn't look like cinema as we understand it traditionally. The picture is far too noisy and low resolution, the digital texture is rough, whereas film is more granular and traditionally aesthetically pleasing. And the lightness of the camera means Lynch is able to move it around and push it into actors' faces in a way he couldn't do with a Hollywood film camera. It's a look that not everyone can appreciate, but I really enjoy it and think it adds to the film. Laura Dern gives what I think should be her career-defining performance in a lead role, just because of the boldness of it. She plays seemingly 3 or 4 iterations or versions of one character, all with different mannerisms, motivations, and personalities, which requires lots of exaggerated acting. She contorts her face, she screams maniacally, and just generally does a whole lot of crazy shit that most actresses as established as her probably wouldn't be game to do.
I'm a whore. Where am I? I'm
With the exception of the last season of Twin Peaks, Inland Empire is probably the most obvious summation of Lynch's career. It contains all his concerns in a really loose and ill-disciplined way, which is part of what makes it interesting, but also means that it has no real focus. It's a mood piece first and foremost, and after the first act it abandons any attempts at narrative cohesion in a way that I don't think is true of most of Lynch's other films. Even Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive, probably his most narratively labyrinthine features behind Inland Empire, are significantly more structured. Inland Empire is almost like a series of vignettes, which may put off some viewers, including fans of his other films. So in all, I really recommend Inland Empire. I don't think it is one of Lynch's most focused films, or necessarily one of his most accomplished, but I do think if you surround yourself in darkness, just sit in a black room and give yourself to the film for 3 hours, you will have some sort of experience you can talk about. You'll be able to tell people about it later, and I think if you're in the right frame of mind, it can really, really freak you out in a way more normal films perhaps couldn't. So Inland Empire, I think you should check it out.